I have recently been on quite the sourdough journey. I watched hours and hours of TikTok and YouTube videos on how to bake sourdough before I even made my first loaf. So I thought today I could combine all of my tips and tricks and hopefully speed up and uncomplicate your sourdough journey. So here are the basics. The absolute key to your sourdough is your starter. I personally got mine from a family friend, so it was already established, and that is 1000% the way that I would recommend going about it. You don't even necessarily have to get one from friends or family. I think some bakeries will give them to you. You can also buy dehydrated starters online, which is really helpful. I normally feed my starter the night before I'm gonna bake, but I feed it the night before, and then when I wake up, I can get started on my actual dough. People are literally gonna have a million different recipes on the internet. Also, when it comes to sourdough baking, everything I do is in grams. It's actually a lot easier than you think. All you need is a food scale, and I've actually grown to really like it. So the recipe that I use is 80 grams of starter, 340 grams of water, 500 grams of bread flour, and then I also do 10 to 15 grams of salt. I probably end up most of the time doing about 12 or 13. Start by adding my starter and my water and mixing that together just until it gets a little bit bubbly. Then I will add in my flour and salt. Make sure that's really well combined. I want it to be somewhat uniform. After all your ingredients are mixed together, you're gonna wanna let it sit for an hour and then begin your stretch and folds. So I end up doing 3 to 4 stretch and folds with 30 minutes in between each. That's just what I found works best for me. All you have to do for a stretch and fold is wet your hands a little bit and slowly kind of shake the dough up and then press it back into itself. Turn the bowl, do that again 4 times, and then I cover it back up and let it rest for another 30 minutes. After the last stretch and fold, you're gonna let it do a big rest. If you're into sourdough baking, you're gonna hear the term bulk fermentation a lot, and a lot of people talk about it after stretch and folds, but it essentially begins as soon as you mix all your ingredients together. Bulk fermentation is really good for adding air and gluten and flavor, creates that sourdough vibe that everyone knows. Temperature in your home is going to change things a lot. There's going to be maybe a chart somewhere that I could put up that shows how different temperatures affect how fast your dough ferments. I live in a really warm climate and it is currently summer, so I would say mine ferments pretty fast. After my last stretch and fold, I probably let it sit for anywhere to around 4 to 6 hours. I decide when my dough is finished based on visual cues. I like to use a glass bowl so that I can lift up the bottom, see that there's really good air bubbles on the bottom, and also you're gonna see that your dough has expanded in size quite a bit. There are so many methods on the internet to help you decide when your dough is done, so I find that these are the ways that work for me every single time. Once that's done resting, I flour my surface and dump my dough out. I don't want to flatten it out completely, but I loosely press it into a rectangle so that I can then fold the sides onto each other and roll it up from the bottom. Someone on TikTok called it the candy cane, where basically you are pushing the dough away from you and then pulling it back into you, if that makes sense. That creates a really smooth and beautiful surface. I use a banneton to let my dough rest overnight, but you can use a bowl that's lined with some sort of a tea towel. I give that a really light flouring, put my dough in there, and I let it cold proof overnight. You can even let it cold proof for multiple days. The next morning, after your dough has sat in the fridge overnight, it is time to bake. Most people will tell you you need a Dutch oven. I prefer a Dutch oven, but you could also use a loaf pan, and I think that there are open bake methods as well. I got my Dutch oven for under $40 on Amazon. I'll have it linked below if anyone wants to check that out, but I love it so much. It's just super heavy duty, and you don't have to spend $300 on a Dutch oven, so that's a win-win in my book. I set my oven to 450 and put the Dutch oven inside to preheat at the same time, lid and bottom. So everything goes in the oven to preheat. While I do that, I score my dough. There are some people that get so decorative with their scoring, and I want to be one of them so bad. I personally am not that artistic, so I keep mine super simple. After everything is preheated, I take the lid off, drop my dough into my Dutch oven, and let it bake covered for 30 minutes. After it is baked for 30 minutes covered, I take the lid off and let it bake for another 10. If you want it crispier, do it for 15 or 20. You want to let your dough cool on some sort of a wire rack or the counter for about an hour until you cut into it. But hopefully after all this is done, you have a successful and delicious loaf of sourdough. Let me know if you guys have any other questions though. I will do my best to answer them. I want to preface that I am not a professional. This is just a hobby. But I do feel like I've gotten pretty good at it. But I'm really wishing you guys the best of luck on your baking journey. And if you've done any sourdough baking, I would love to see pictures because I'm all in on sourdough right now. That is my entire algorithm on like 3 different platforms. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like content like this. I really appreciate it.